Straight from the edge, it's time for some daytime drama. Over on Y&R, Mia put a, what do you call it, ultrasound picture on Sharon's door and trying to show her that she knows about Sharon and Ray getting together and showing that really Ray's going to come back to her because they're going to have a baby together. And so, of course, Ray gets confronted about it with Sharon because, you know, she got blindsided and knew exactly what Mia was up to. And he told her basically that he wanted to tell her, but he wasn't sure if it was Arturo's or his. And he wanted everything to be perfect with Sharon, and they'd waited so long to be together. You know, he thought his marriage was over, and he had moved to town and all that, so he was trying to say it. He didn't want it to influence his time with her. And so she did kind of understand, but she really needed to confront Mia about the whole thing. And Mia, of course, doubled over with some pain in her stomach, and of course Sharon was concerned about her because she doesn't want anything to happen to her baby. And she got Ray to convince her to take her to the hospital. And so of course she's feeling better, and the doctor's saying, well, you know, about your gynecologist, like, can I contact him? And so Mia, of course, was faking this whole thing, and so she didn't want any kind of like more knowledge to go out to Ray or Sharon. And so he did say, oh, we need to do an ultrasound. And so even before you saw that they did the ultrasound, you just knew she actually was going to be pregnant. And so, of course, the baby's about 12 weeks along, and it seems like it could be either one of them. It probably is Arturo, but it may be Ray, which it's going to be fun to see how all this plays out. But, of course, Sharon was hugging Ray outside of the hospital room, and Mia's, you know, putting her hands on her stomach, and she's happy that she's pregnant, but she's seeing Sharon out there, and they kind of lock eyes, and of course they're not pleased with each other. But quite a good fun episode there. Of course, Billy made it out to Victoria at Vegas, and you know, he's trying to show off what makes them so great together, and that playful lightheartedness that they have when they're away from Genoa City. And he's trying to really remind her of all that stuff that they've had together. And of course, she was dating this, well, she was with this rock star while she was there, and so he's trying to push him off as best he can. But the rock star has some sort of card game that, you know, they're setting up at some hotel room. Well, of course, Victoria knows that her father's been at some of these games, and so she wants to get the game over to her room 505. And so of course she convinces him to come, and Billy's there. And so of course the rock star's like, you know, he's like, I don't think this is gonna work, you know. And of course Victoria says, oh, you know, Billy's my security. And Billy pulls out this big old wad of bills and says, you're gonna get to play with my money and have the game here. And of course everyone starts showing up, and Billy runs into one of his competitors. She'd done some stuff in the past, about 6 months ago or so, when he'd embezzled all the money with Jabot. And so he sees her, and he's like, oh geez, because she's trying to entice him to play, and he really doesn't want to play because he'd just gotten through all of this and working through his demons with, you know, the compulsive gambling. And So of course, the game starts, and I can't remember the competitor's name, but she's trying to entice Victoria into, playing or whatnot. And Victoria, of course, is playing the game, and Billy's competitor, she plays out a flush, and she puts all her chips in the center. And of course, Victoria's like, all right, well, put them all in. And she'd been calling her princess, of course. And so, of course, Victoria lays down a royal flush. And she goes, well, there you go for the princess. And so, of course, Victoria wins. And Billy's just ecstatic because he's seeing his woman, basically show off her skills, even though she doesn't really play cards. And so the game kind of ends, and the rock star's leaving, and of course Victor never showed up, and so the rock star leaves, and Billy basically shuts the door right on his butt. He barely got out the door before he slammed it on him. And of course they're like, well, we'll just head back, and they know there's another game that he's going to be at, but Victor is undercover doing something, and obviously he was in Dubai, and who knows what this is. It could be some government related thing, you never know. So of course over at the Abbott estate, they'd been working on a strategy for Jabot going forward, and using the online marketing and fashion and all that kind of good stuff. And Jack had a pretty good plan where they were going to have this as a full course sort of thing where you got everything of all the products. And so lo and behold, you have Ashley coming out with the exact same plan, same name. I think they call it My Beauty Collection, something like that. And so they're totally outmaneuvered, and Jack's like, how in the hell did this happen? Because nobody said anything, and he of course asked everyone, and he didn't accuse Billy, but Billy took it that way. And so he'd headed back from Vegas, and he thought another weak link might be Summer, and he kind of confronted Kyle, and Kyle said of course she'd never do this, and don't ever say anything, because she's going to take it really personally. And of course Kyle understands the whole business idea of it. So Jack's kind of thinking in his mind, and he realizes that Ashley had given a gift basket, and lo and behold, he goes through it, and there is a little microphone in there, and so he knows he's bugged, and so he puts it in a little box so that he can use it later. And he ends up getting it. He opens it when he needs to he knows Ashley will be listening, and he basically saying he's going to concede and let her win and all of this sort of stuff. And of course she calls right away saying, oh, you found the bug. He said, this competition's just fun, and he offers her, I think, $2 million to basically get the collection idea back. And she says, well, 4, and I don't know if they conceded on 3 or something like that. And he says he's going to pay it. I was kind of shocked with that. And of course, Tracy's like, you guys are playing your little games. And she she thinks they're like little kids, but Jack's just having the time of his life with this whole thing. And it's a hell of a lot of fun. So you also have Lola, around, and Phyllis wants her daughter to be happy, and she doesn't think that Kyle is going to provide that for her when he's pining after Lola, so he's got the two loves. And so Phyllis talks to Lola and basically gives her, like, I'm taking my daughter out of town on a spa trip, and it's better that you might be able to make this marriage fall apart quicker rather than later, and I'm giving you this opportunity here, and it'll help my daughter out. So of course Summer's kind of like, why are we going on a trip, and like, but she concedes. She's like, well, my mom, wants to go because she lost her job and all this sort of stuff. Well, of course, Kyle goes jogging and he ends up at the coffee shop, sees Lola, and she kind of, they're attracted to each other, and he loves her and Summer, so he's saying to Lola, okay, how's it going? So Lola says, well, you want to meet for dinner, and he says, okay, and so they end up at the club later, and of course Phyllis hired somebody to follow them and take pictures, and this is a setup. And so of course they're having dinner, and Lola basically says, she's feeling what he felt and realizes everything that he sacrificed so that she can live, and she is grateful to Summer and all that, but she basically says that her virgin status, she can't imagine anyone else other than Kyle. And so she booked a room upstairs and was saying she wanted him. And of course he is somewhat torn, but he's just ecstatic over Lola. And so they take pictures. There's pictures being taken of him. They go upstairs, and he's, of course, they're getting busy, and something in the back of his mind knows he needs to stop. They've muted their phones, but I think he might have seen a flashlight from Summer calling and whatnot. And he stops himself and says, that he loves Lola, but he can't do this to Summer, and it doesn't feel right, even to Lola, to do this to Lola, to make her the other woman. And she says, you made me love you more because you treat me with respect and all this. And just great to see Kyle pull himself back from the brink, and his character just continues to grow and mature. It's great. And so of course Phyllis and Summer come back early, and Summer, she knew something was off, and so Phyllis hightails it over there where the photographer was, and she's gonna head upstairs to confront Kyle, and she has some better judgment in her head and realizes to back off. But of course she calls up Jack, and she's like, wanting to tell him what's up. So Kyle had gone back and to the Abbott estate, and it seems like there was some kind of confusion where who was at, but he ended up back there with Summer at some point upstairs, and she's getting all handsy with him because that's her husband, and she wants to be with him, and she was worried about him, where he was at, but she didn't say anything. And so of course Phyllis comes over, and she basically blackmails Jack into saying that she wants to get Fenmore out of Jabot, and she didn't get her golden parachute, and she's gonna blackmail Jack over this whole thing, that Kyle might be stepping out on Summer after they just got married, and this looks horrible, blah blah blah. And so Jack's just looking at Phyllis like, are you freaking serious? You're trying to do this at the expense of your daughter? And of course she's playing off, she'll land on her feet, we'll work together, blah blah blah, a bunch of garbage. And he just looking at Phyllis like, I can't believe this, and you're doing this, just unbelievable, but not shocked. And so basically he calls Kyle down, and he tells Kyle what's up, and Kyle's trying to say, he wanted to confess to Summer about what happened, but he realized how loving she was when he got there, and he just couldn't bear to do it. He's totally torn, but he basically says, I've got to tell the truth, and we can't let Phyllis do this. And Jack says, don't do this for business, do this, you're more important to me, and Summer and Lola, all this is more important than business. But he says, no, I need to do this. And of course, so Jack heads off to go confront Phyllis, and Kyle goes up and talks to Summer, and he tells her, and she says, but you kept yourself from going further, and I know how much Lola means to you, and she basically said she kind of was proud of him, and Kyle's just taken aback, thinking that, you know, he betrayed her, and she did say it was cheating, but she kind of was expecting it. Emotional cheating. It wasn't physical, completely. And so she said, you know, basically like, you know, hold me, and it was a sweet moment. Like, she's Hunter King just doing a great job. Love what they let you do with the character coming back for this second time this year. And so Kyle, you know, he's realizing maybe he just doesn't know what to do now. He thought he was gonna leave somewhere, and oh my gosh, it's just a mess. So but I think it's great that he's having that, because he's realizing that he might have something special, and she tells him that too, that they've grown a lot since they got married. So anyway, of course Jack heads over to the athletic club and heads upstairs to see Phyllis, and tells her she's been outmaneuvered, outplayed, and she's just pissed. And he's looking at her, and they're right at each other, like there's, you know, some sexual tension there, and she's just like, get out of here. And so he kind of smiles, shut the door, and she just hucks something up with the mirror, smashes it. 7 years bad luck. And just, you know, she's totally spiraling out, thinking she had got her way back in. She told Lauren that she had this plan, and, you know, she's looking at the mirror, the broken mirror in her face, and realizing, you know, that reflection back of herself and the things she doesn't like. And, you know, hopefully this helps her out going forward. But of course Jack goes downstairs and talks to Lauren and tells her that, you know, the plan had failed, and she said, well, you know, this was Phyllis' thing. I wasn't really trying to do anything here. And he's like, you know, we're partners, and let's work this. He went through the whole plan that he had, and showing it was a comprehensive thing, and how much Fenmore's was important to the strategy, and, you know, how they're going to work in this, you know, vertical integration sort of thing. And she seemed really pleased with that. So it, you know, it worked out really nice, and they're just giving Peter a ton to work with the last week or two, and just, it's been a lot of fun to see him back doing what he does. All right, over on GH, so you have Willow showing off her tattoo, I think, at some point to Chase, and it seems like Michael knows about it too. You know, they're at the floating rib and trying to get more information across, saying basically that she's in severe trouble if basically she's going through with being in the trust. Christine, we're talking about Christina now, and Michael's realizing like this is a big dire thing, and that he needs to get over there, tell his dad about what's going on. And of course Sonny is getting everything together with Jason and Sam. Like, basically they got to get Christina out of Shiloh's orbit right now, and there's no real way around it. Neil, Joe Flanagan's character, so he'd been talking to Alexis at the floating rib as well, and basically she said, well, I need to tell you, my daughter's in a cult. And he's like, okay. And they're going through all of the signs and everything, and he says, well, you know, just, you got to let this thing play out, and the worst thing you can do is take her out of it. And then she goes right back to it, and she says, well, what do we wait till she goes to Jonestown and drinks the purple Kool-Aid, and you know, brings up some real things in the real world that have happened to people. And so he's, you know, thinking, you know, there might be a little bit more to us, but he gives her the bill she said she'd pay. And so there's some other stuff going on in the bar. You got Chet asking Peter, you know, basically, should he ask Maxie out? He's not really sure about Peter liking Maxie, but he Peter's like, you should go for it. And so Chet asks out Maxie, and she basically has to let down this high school crush she always had, and because she's in love with Peter, and Peter's ecstatic that she basically tells him all of this. And so Anna is watching with Finn this all in play at the bar, because they're also at the floating river. You have all these parties there at the same time. It's kind of fun to watch. And so they finally kiss a little bit here, Peter and Maxie. And so Anna's watching the sweet moment go on, and Finn's trying to propose to Anna, and everything's interrupting him. Robert comes up at some point, and the whole thing just blows up, whatnot. But as far as going back to Willow and all of that, Michael, he ends up talking to his dad, and then of course you have Alexis go off to talk to Sonny too, and Neil goes off. Neil is invited over to talk to Sonny as well, and so everyone's on board basically that Christina is going to be taken out of the DOD. And so there was also another little point that Sam, when she was leaving Dawn of Day, she had seen Margot Dawson, D.A. Dawson, walking in, and so basically she's saying that she might be in this cult too. And then of course Sonny's kind of saying this girl's being targeted by Shiloh, and she's had this rough year where she found out her mom had put out a hit on her dad, and so he has some sympathy towards her, and that maybe they can work with her when this all kind of unfolds. But they got to get Christina out of there, and there's not really any way around it. So of course Jason and Sam set this whole thing up where Sam pretends to be drunk at the floating rib and gets Shiloh to leave to talk to her, because he's attracted to her, thinking he's going to get her in the cult. And of course that Sam is the whole reason he got into this whole thing, because his fortune was stolen by Sam, from she'd married his father and blah blah blah. So he heads over there, and so this is an opportunity for Jason to get in there, because they're starting to do this ceremony with Christina, and it's going to culminate after the tattooing with her being, violated by Shiloh as, an honor or whatever. And so Jason gets in there, sneaks in, and he goes upstairs to the attic. He finds her with all the candles and blah, blah, blah. And he grabs her, and he basically catches the thing that had drugged her. He grabbed that. He had the sigil tattoo on the bottom, and she had no idea what was going on. So he got her out of there and took her to the safe house, and it seems like Milo and Max are covering it. And so Sam, has to play this whole thing out at the bar, and then once she knows Christina's out, she basically cuts Shiloh loose, says thanks, blah blah blah, and Shiloh realizes that Christina's gone, and he's pissed. But the next day, Sam has to keep playing this out that she's undercover. So she heads over to the Dawn of Day place, and she's saying, what's going on, like looking for Christina, and he's like, well, we don't know where she's at, and playing off nicely. And then of course Molly walks in and just is in total, like, where's my sister? Basically calling Shiloh a cult leader right to his face. I mean, it was something else. I mean, Haley, you are just so fun to watch, and getting to watch you, getting to see you do your thing, like, it's just a lot of fun to watch. And you even told him that he basically plagiarized all this stuff, and you'd have footnotes in the book and everything. The writers, you did a ton of good stuff there, and you threw the book down. And of course, Shannon's laughing the whole time because she's telling the exact truth to him, right to his face. You know, she's just got that backbone. It's just awesome. And she storms out. Sam says, "Oh, I gotta go talk to my sister," and she goes out and plays it off like she's still, you know, in the cult. And Molly's like, "I can't even believe you that you'd be doing this," and she doesn't realize her sister's undercover, but it's a ton of fun to watch. And yeah, so basically they got Christina to the safe house, and she wakes up and Jason's there, and she's kind of disoriented, you know, what's going on, like where am I? And he tells her, and she's like, "What? I was supposed to do the ceremony," and she's completely mind controlled, or whatever you want to call it, and thinking she needs to be in Donna Day, and so he's trying to say, you know, would I ever hurt you? I've helped you your whole life. And she just starts ranting at him, and then of course Jason goes, "Well, you want some breakfast?" Steve just played it off just so well. It was just so much fun to watch, and she's can't be pissed at him, like. But then of course Sunny shows up, and she's like, "Yeah, Dad," you know, like, and then, "How could you do this to me?" You know, hitting on him, whatever. And he's saying, you know, "Had to get you out of there," blah, blah, blah. She's just so angry. And then her mom shows up, Alexis, and she's pissed at her, like, "How could you do this to me?" Blah, blah, blah. And so it's one after the next. And then, of course, Neil comes, and he's trying to talk to her about all of this. And, you know, he'd warned both of them that pulling her out like this, you know, they have to deprogram her before they let her back out, because otherwise they're never going to see her again, because she's going to go back to the cult, and that's going to be it. They're going to lose her. So they have her on lockdown, and he told them that they need to come all together and not fight with each other, because she's trying to basically pit them against each other. And so yeah, it's fun to watch. And so with Neil, you know, there was kind of this, we're not sure his motivations other than being, you know, a psychologist. Hopefully he's not actually part of this whole Donna Day scheme, but it seems that it's on the up and up, that he's a good, you know, character that's unrelated to Dawn of Day. So we'll see how that all plays out. But so Kevin was cleared by Nora Buchanan, and of course DA Dawson was just super pissed because Nora had brought up this case where somebody was declared dead. So of course you had Ryan declared dead years before, and Kevin had helped out his brother when he was after he was declared dead, and so there was a precedent basically that he wasn't aiding and abetting a fugitive. And so even though it might have been immoral, he actually legally he hadn't violated any law, and so the charges had to be dropped under those circumstances. And so back to the floating rib on that one day, there was all these groups together. So you had Ava and Laura and Felicia talking together, basically realizing, you know, that Ryan was out there and he had his hand chopped off, hook hand, and, you know, he was gonna come after Ava because he was in love with her. And so they know they've got to come up with a plan to basically draw him out before he gets them and put it on their timetable. So of course they didn't say it at this point, but the best bait that they're going to have to come up with might be that Ava and Kevin actually pretend that they're together, and that's just going to drive Ryan nuts and get him there. And it seems like he actually showed up by Friday. They had the camera kind of like from his angle, and he kind of ran away from the screen. So he might actually be in town already, but if he finds out that his brother's moving in on his own, he's going to be all over that. So we'll see. Now that Kevin's freed up, he might be able to get in on that scheme with them and you know, it should be fun to watch. So Anna is also having this problem where she knows Alex has memories that are implanted in Anna, so she doesn't know what's real or what's not. And you know, with all the stuff going on in reality, you know, this kind of storyline is just perfect, because you know, it's like, is this my memory? Is this someone else's memory? Is this one timeline or another timeline? You just don't know. So of course Anna's thinking that, you know, Robin might not be her kid, and she's basically telling Robert, like, you know, this could have been Alex this whole time. And he's like looking at her like, you're unraveling like all of our history and love together, and Robin, he says Robin's the best thing, you know, their family, everything to ever happen to him. And how could you do this? How could you, you know, talk about our history not being real, and that I can tell the difference between you and Alex. And she's going through all this, but you know, most likely Robin is her kid, but the person that might not be is Peter. And you know, she's blocking that part because she feels so much sympathy towards Peter and what his life was. So it's probably going to end up that Peter might not be her kid, but he might. So we'll see how that all plays out. But this whole memory thing, a lot of fun stuff. Oh, and of course, Oscar, you know, had that huge seizure, and the tumor has grown a ton, and you know, he's gonna probably have to do some hospice, and they're thinking that it's gonna be at Monica's at the Quartermains, and everyone's just totally devastated. Drew and Kim and Jocelyn, I mean, just everyone's pulling, you know, great acting on all of this, just playing out, and Oscar just feels really realistic, and just great job, you guys. You know, hopefully there's a miracle with Oscar, but we'll see how this all plays out. So, but tons of great acting there, and just devastating sort of stuff. And yeah, over on Bold, so Hope is having, you know, problems still adjusting, and she calls over Flo to talk. And of course, so Zoe sees this going on, and she's just like realizing that Flo is most likely gonna confess to what had happened with Beth, you know, and so she hightails it out of there, tells Xander, I'm out, you know, doesn't really tell him why, but let her know, you know, if certain things happen. And prior to Flo getting over there, of course, she's with Wyatt, and you know, they're trying to get the DNA results on her father and possible paternity. And so Flo is so thankful, and she's getting kind of close with Wyatt, and you know, she kisses him on the lips, and he's like, you know, like, I'm with Sally, but she kind of apologizes, but she got caught up in the moment with all that's going on. And so, you know, it's kind of a little bit like dicey there, and we kind of know that they might be sister and brother, and so that adds a whole other element into it. And so she heads over to Forrester, but seems like prior to that, Quinn and Shauna were reuniting, and Shauna was realizing that, you know, Bill was the father of Wyatt, and she's like, oh my gosh. And she knows that she was with Bill around the same time that Flo was conceived, and so this might be the father of her child. And so of course Wyatt and Flo were high school sweethearts. And so, you know, you're all of this going through your head. So of course they call Bill, and Bill heads over there, not really knowing what they're talking about. And so he comes in, and Quinn is talking to him. I can't remember how this played out exactly, but it seems like Shauna had gone to the bathroom, and when she came back in, Quinn hadn't really said anything, I think, at that point, but Shauna wasn't recognized by Bill, and so she was, you know, miffed, like, you know, we were together, and he's like, who are you? And like, he's like, you don't remember? And she goes to this whole night that they had in Vegas years ago, you know, 25 whatever years ago, and so he of course is kind of looking at her like, maybe, but then they head over to Spencer to be a little bit more discreet, and so they started going through like who knew what, and basically Shauna saying, I'm not interested in your money and all of this stuff. They had found out of all this paternity stuff recently, and so they're trying to figure it all out. Well, of course they call Wyatt or something like that, and he's saying, well, he has DNA results that are coming up, and they had kind of said, have you been with Flo? And because of course Quinn was trying to matchmake Flo and Wyatt together, and so she's concerned that they might be sister and brother now, and that she kind of was getting hooked up. And Bill's like, he's thinking these might be his two kids that were together, and they're just kind of like, what's going on? Like, this is just unbelievable. And so Wyatt is like, can't even believe this information, and Shauna's confirming kind of that Bill and her were together all this time ago, but so the results do come in. Wyatt calls Flo, and of course she's over there with Hope, and she's just pouring her soul out, trying to tell Hope that Beth is still alive and that it's Phoebe. And she's so close, and Hope keeps, you know, backing her up again, where she said, oh, no, you know, like, you've been so good and all this. So deep down she must know something's up, but she doesn't want Flo to actually tell her subconsciously or whatever. And so it's quite a, I don't know, they're both of them you know, crying and whatnot, but she gets the call from Wyatt. Wyatt says the results are in. She had given the passcode to Wyatt to get into the results as well, and she's like, I'm in the middle of something, I can't talk about this. And so he's just like, you know, I don't know. And so of course the three parents are like, you have to show us the results, like this can't go on, you know. And so he's trying to like type it in the computer, in his dad's computer, and he's reading the results, and like, what is it? And they're just so impatient. Bill gets in there, and then he's like, oh my gosh. And they're just thinking like, Bill's the father, like they can't believe it. And then he goes, I'm not the father. And they're like, well, who is? Like, so they have information, and it is Storm Logan is the father. And so he's relieved, of course he's relieved, and that it's not him, and that his kids weren't together. And so they start to they show the picture to Shauna, and she realizes, oh, he's, you know, such a great guy, and she's knows who he is because she was with him at the same time, and so she's pleased. But they say basically he's passed on, and but they need to tell Flo, and so they're gonna head over to tell her the results. But on the way out, of course, Bill stays back, and Wyatt's walking out, and and they give a glance to each other like, who's more relieved? Like, Wyatt, that you weren't sleeping with your sister, or that Bill, that he's not the father. And of course Wyatt goes, you know, like these shows, you are not the father. Just, you know, Maury. Just a ton of fun. He leaves, and they head over to Forrester, and Flo is about ready to tell Hope that, you know, the whole information on paternity and that Beth's live, and you know, they're just both bawling basically. And Katrina Anika, you know, both of you are great actresses, and just just feels so much like reality, the way you played it off. And you know, I really wanted Flo to get that confession out right before they got in there, but of course the writers played it out where they got there right when she was going to say it, and they're telling her, you know, basically the paternity and that she's a cousin and she's a Logan and all of this stuff, and she's kind of trying to take it all in. And so Hope's realizing that, oh, this must be the secret that you were trying to tell me, and Flo's still trying to like tell her, and but she's also trying to understand, well, who's her father and this storm. And so meanwhile you have Donna and Katie and Brooke hanging out together at Brooke's, and Donna spills some water on Katie. Well, of course she spills on where she had open heart surgery, and Katie, you know, it jogged their memory about their brother. So their brother was Storm Logan. So Katie was gonna die, and they did the whole flashback to show people what had happened, that she was on death's door and she wasn't obviously getting an organ transplant, and her brother, knowing that his sister was gonna die, took his own life, and that was Storm Logan. And so he basically killed himself, gunshot to the head, in the room next to her at the hospital, left a note, whatnot, and picture. And, you know, flashback, just totally devastating, sort of, yeah, to even have a storyline like that. And of course, William DeVry, you know, he's over there on GH playing Julian Jerome, great actor. And so seeing all of that unfold, you know, this plot line had escaped me, but just very emotional. And so they're going through all that, and then you know how these things play out, where the timing of things and the I guess you would call it the synchronicity of them finding out paternity of him, and they're saying, you know, he never had kids, and wish that he had more, what his future would have been like, but grateful that Katie lived, and Bill's grateful Katie lived. They have, you know, Will, and so just a lot of gratefulness, and you know, they're talking about the self-sacrifice and just very emotional stuff. And the writers and all the actors just pulling all this together just very well. So going forward, you know, Flo, I hope, doesn't wait too long to tell Hope, because now that she's part of the family, I think their reaction isn't going to be so harsh to where they go after criminally. And you know, it may happen, but I really think that they've already really connected with her before they realize she's family. And so, you know, she has this moral guide compass that she's really trying to, and I think Hope was going to understand that she's tried to tell her multiple times, but just couldn't get it out all the way. And it's not like she's trying super hard to keep it a secret from her. she just didn't have the complete strength. But Hope is such a forgiving person and cares about people. I think she's going to really understand what she went through, and that she's caught in a rock and a hard place and did something that she shouldn't have. But yeah, so I love what, you know, they're all doing over there. Good stuff. And now they're cousins, so it's gonna be some fun stuff. Anyway, a little bit more drops out there, so keep researching.